But the parliament, I think, along the way, it has not been performing to expectation. Until in 2021, we had the embarrassing incidences, and I should use that word because it's the correct word. It was embarrassing to everybody on the continent and outside during the elections. But I'm happy to say we have totally moved away from that negative culture, that unfortunate way of conducting business as a parliament. We have now reinvented ourselves, and as you saw, the elections were very peaceful. And now this workshop was to do some introspection and say, how do the public also view us in terms of who we are, in terms of decorum, those unfortunate events. Can we go back to the public and demonstrate that we are now a totally newly born Pan-African Parliament? We had also occasion not only talk about behavior and conduct, but also about programs themselves, the outputs of the Parliament, the impact it has had on the masses of this continent. We want to agree that there's a lot of room for us to improve in terms of impact. There are several issues that I need to show, to mention the whole list. But look at poverty and hunger, for example. Those are two basic issues to be confronted with in this age and era. We should have moved from issues of hunger and poverty. We should be talking of digitalization of our communities rather than saying people are hungry. So, and the issue of infrastructure, issues of transportation, movement of people, we also give a bit of prominence to the AFCT, the African Continental Free Trade Area. Yes, countries have ratified very well, a number of countries have done so, but we still have a challenge in terms of changing and adapting the trade rules across borders, so that when you move from one country to another, buying or selling, you should not get all the usual colonial impediments, because the laws of the past were not meant to integrate Africa in terms of trade. They were meant to export raw materials to other outside world, to Europe and others. But it still appears we are still struggling. Other than creating infrastructure, roads and communication systems, the issue of the laws themselves, they do not favor regional integration or continental integration. And that's the role of PAP now, to go deeper and say, let us have common laws, let us have model laws that will come up with and share with all the countries. That is to do with the trade aspect. We still have the issue of conflict on the continent. Unfortunately, we thought by this time there would be no government that we refer to as unconstitutional, because it resulted from a coup. But we still have, I think, 4 on the continent out of 55. That's a huge number. We don't need any. The elections issue, of which we are now back also to participating in elections as observers, joined with the AU. We went to Kenya, and it has been very unfortunate again. We're still waiting for the conclusion of the elections. Now, through the courts, something that's very undesirable. We hear in Angola things may have gone well, there's still peace and silence, but we still appeal to the Angolans also to say, please accept the results, as we did even before the elections. Yes, there are so many issues, but we think as a parliament now, we have created a new committee. Committees have started working vibrantly, with clear, much better understanding of their business. And we're emphasizing the need for committees to discuss issues that make an impact on the ordinary citizen of this continent. Not to hold the workshops and that are discussing topics that you want to, nice to know topics. We just feel good that we're at a workshop. No, we want to have results on the ground.
Mr. President, you spoke about how the African Continental Free Trade Area has been ratified and now the challenges implementation. But this continental legislature, countries are still reluctant to ratify the Malabo Protocol, so that you can have powers to hold governments accountable or do better oversight.
Indeed, the There's ratification, there is also signing. Before you ratify, you sign. We need 28 countries to ratify the Malabo Protocol for PAP to be, I want to say, in courts, legislative. Only 22 countries have signed. Signing is not the end. When a country signs, it has to ratify. So when they sign, they have to go to ratification. So of the 22 that signed, 14 have ratified, which means ratification means they take the instrument to their parliaments, and the parliaments then endorse. Then that's ratification. Signing, the president can sign alone at a summit, but then they have to take this back to their parliaments. So only 14 have actually ratified, half of the number that we need. And this is how many years now? 8 years from the date that the Malabo Protocol was ready for signing and for ratification. Indeed, there are countries that have been resisting, but we are also crafting a new strategy to approach those countries that are reluctant.
What's a new strategy?
Basically, listen to them also. Listen to them why they have not been signing. Some have some issues, and we need to explain to them the benefits of signing. So it's because they've never had the benefit of clear explanation as to some clauses that they are not comfortable with. We know some of the clauses that they are not comfortable with, but I think with a bit of negotiation with them, we believe we will succeed.
You spoke about the coups on the continent. You spoke about the issue of elections. It looks like we are regressing.
One of the important issues is for the AU to be strict on countries that are being run by military governments. The AU has been a bit soft on these countries. So we need to be tough. Anyone, whether in their barracks or at home, they should know that if I do this, basically I'm also in trouble. I think the embracing unconstitutional governments is also a problem on the continent. We have accepted them. Yes, we have now some on sanctions, but look at Mali. When there was a coup first time, the AU did not act, even though there was a military government. But that same military government was overthrown by another military. And that's when the AU said, no, now it's serious. So do we need 2 coups to impose sanctions, for example? And even then, the soft approach has not worked. Something bad is bad. It cannot be sanitized and like we use sanitizers on the hands and say it's a good coup. And that's the only way. But also the other thing is governance systems. Governance systems, people should govern in the interest of the people. We should now be able also to read some what we call early warning systems, where we see sometimes emotions gathering in a country. We know of countries where people are extremely unhappy because of the way they are being governed. I think we should go in quickly also to whoever is the leader and say, our brother, I think change 1 or 2 things. Maybe it's corruption. People have lost confidence in your system. But we leave each head of state this issue of sovereignty, but within that sovereignty, something is burning. And until the whole house is on fire, then we go in and say, can we now assist? So the issue of governance, which includes elections, that elections, where there are disputes, but people should be convinced that Madam Moekena won the election. We love him. We love her. In some cases, you find if the whole process of election is questionable, people lose confidence even before you vote. Some of these things are creating problems in our country. So there are 2 issues: the way people are governed and the management of elections are causing us problems.
Your message to the heads of state and government on the continent. The citizens of this continent are restless, as you pointed out. What is your message to them?
In my view, the heads of state are aware of the aspirations of their people. But I think, again, go back to governance. And in my own view, it is people mostly that are employed by the head of states also. The people they trust and put into positions. To me, they have not done well for the president. In my view, the people around the president in most countries have not been helpful to the situation. And I think they need to change a bit of model in terms of who you deploy. It's about deployment, basically. We have competent people, and if you deploy the right people, they will work with the people. And if there's a problem, people appreciate and understand the nature of the problem. It's like if there's no rain, there's a drought. People know it's God. So they are saying, okay, God will give us rains. It's okay. But if there is no water in a tap, we can't say God. Someone should be able to be with the people. Make the people understand that why maybe some dam is dried up. People should not gossip about solutions and the problems. The moment we create a more transparent, accountable governance systems, then it will be okay. Simple. People are not irrational. People are rational. If we don't have gold in your country, for example, they will not ask you to dig and get gold. No, they know there's no gold. So let us present to the people what is there, honestly. People then will also decide and even advise you that please don't waste time on this or don't waste money on this. Why don't we put money on this in this area? It is the people. When you have problems, let the people govern. Govern by going to them, let them give you their own views. Let things go bad because the people themselves have decided said that we go that direction. But because we try to govern for the people, that's why we have a problem. So we talk of democracy, we don't understand democracy. You know, democracy is not voting. When we think when people voted there's good democracy, no. Voting is a means to democracy. When we vote, we are saying, Mr. So-and-so, we've elected him. He or she will come back to us so that we give them their views about what we want and how it should be governed. Now, when leaders don't go back to their people, that's not democracy. So we should not only talk of democracy, we should talk of democratic governance, which means the people themselves are deciding. There's a country on this continent 7 years ago whose constitution had term limits for president. But the president decided to exceed two terms. He managed to collude with parliamentarians to amend the constitution in his favor so that he could go for another third term. They did that. Parliament then amended the constitution on this continent, and the people went in the streets and said, who told you to extend the term? You parliamentarians. People marched to the capital city and banned the parliament. You know, a country in North Africa. This did happen. So the question now is, how could, if the MPs who are representatives make this amendment and people come and ban the same parliament, which means the MPs are not governing democracy. They're not accountable. That's not democracy now. You were elected, but there's no democratic governance. And democratic governance is the solution to our problems on the continent, I can assure you.